the first things we need to do for our falafels is we need to soak or bloom our bulgur wheat. So this is an ingredient you see in a lot of Mediterranean food, definitely Greek. It's a good background note. It's it's starch for your falafels. Got my 1 cup of bulgur wheat here. I've already got my water that I've heated up previously, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I not just put a little bit of water here. I'm going to make sure I soak this pretty good. It's got a good inch of water over the top here, and we're just actually going to let this sit for a full hour to fully hydrate the wheat before we use it in our falafels. All right, folks, now that our bulgur wheat has bloomed and steeped in the hot water, we can get going on putting our falafels together. As you can see here, if you remember earlier, we actually had quite a bit of water in here, probably a good inch and a half of water, and that's really swelled up and absorbed almost all the water. But what I want to do is grab a bowl here and a fine sieve, mesh sieve here, because I don't want to lose any of this here. So I'm just going to go ahead and dump this out just to drain the excess water. Because what's interesting about falafels is it's a fine balance between it being too dry where it won't come together and too moist where it's just not an appealing texture. So we're just going to go ahead and pull all this all out. And you can see here I've got my food processor all ready to go, because this is a dish that's much easier to do in a food processor. You could probably do this with a blender, but it's really not going to be as easy. Sometimes you really do need the right tool for the right job, and a food processor like this is really going to save you a lot of time, and it's one of those kitchen tools that you can really use for a lot of different things. So here I've just got my excess water out here, and this was a cup of dry, and it's probably a good 2.5, almost 3 cups moist now. This is just like our lima beans that we soaked, that it really does absorb the water. So we'll go ahead, bring this over here. Start off with our wheat in the bottom. Next thing we're going to put in here is our 3 slices of whole wheat bread. Again, this is something else that we've soaked up. Drain out the excess water. And actually, instead of just letting this drain out, I'm actually going to go in here and I'm going to squeeze out the excess water, because this whole wheat bread serves as a very good binder for our falafels. But again, we don't want to have too much water here, or it's just not going to be an appealing product, and it's actually going to take longer to cook if we have too much water in it. All right, and I'm going to break this up a little bit because I want to make this as easy as possible to go ahead and get in here. Just drop that in. All right, and like most of our dishes here, we've talked a little bit about how we can use dried beans, we can use canned beans. Real time saver here is our cup of canned garbanzo beans. Garbanzo beans, although they are very small, sometimes they can take a really long time to cook, so this is a good one, good use of canned beans, because we're combining it in a product with a lot of other flavors and textures here, where it's going to be very appealing. We've got our garlic. Go ahead and get that in there. Using my spatula, because we spent all that time prepping all this, so we want to make sure we get it all. Our fresh parsley, fresh, not dried. Baking powder. We've got our cumin, coriander, paprika. I've used the smoked paprika because I had it here in the cupboard, so I thought that would be a good thing to add. And the cayenne. I went a little heavy on the cayenne. I enjoy them a little bit spicier, but you can always use that to taste. Now that we have everything in there, we'll go ahead and put our lid on, and we're going to pulse this. Don't want to just let it run. We're going to pulse it and let it come together. And this is always good. Like most times when we're using a food processor, we want to get in here and scrape down the sides. I'm also checking out my my texture here and my moisture. If yours comes out a little bit too dry and it's not coming together well, certainly you can throw in a couple of tablespoons of water, and that's going to really help it come together. Lid back on. Gonna give it one more scrape down. What's nice is once we get this in the oven, it's going to brown up very nicely, and it's going to have a very nice color. Take a couple more pulses and we're going to be there. And that's looking really good. So we'll get our oven going, we'll get that up to temperature, and we will get this portioned out onto some sheet trays. We'll get those in the oven. All right, now that we've got our falafel basically dough ready to go here, we're gonna get these scooped out onto baking trays and get these into the oven. So what I've got here is non-stick, but I'm still gonna go ahead with a little olive oil here. Just I've got a paper towel here. Makes it a little bit easier, keeps your hands from getting too terribly greasy. I'm gonna just go ahead and give this a light rub with some olive oil. If I was using just a regular aluminum pan, what I would do is probably use parchment paper, and I might even still put just a little light coat of olive oil like I've done here. So what I've got here is a scoop, just to make my life a little bit easier. This is about 1 tablespoon, so I'm just gonna come in here and I'm gonna just do, and I'm gonna go back and mash these down when we're done. But I'm probably gonna do these, because I am gonna mash them down. I don't wanna get them too close together. I may do, let's say, we'll do 3 in a row here and we'll see how that works out. So I'm probably going to get about, maybe in the neighborhood of 18 of these on a tray. My oven's already been set to 400 degrees, so it's warming up there very well. I gave it a good 10 minutes. You know, you're going to know your oven, 10-15 minutes is kind of what most ovens take to come up to temperature and stabilize. So get these going. And so we've got, looks like we've got 20 on here. You could actually use a fork and press these down, but I'm just gonna use, just to make my life a little bit easier, you know, chefs are usually pretty hands-on. I've got some just cool water here. I'm just gonna mash these down by hand, just to flatten them. I still wanna have them give some height. The baking powder in there is going to actually puff these up just a little bit as they bake. The other reason I don't want to get these too terribly close together is I am going to flip these after 10 minutes so they evenly brown. So we just kind of do this like so. Again, and you could make these quite a bit larger, but what's nice about keeping them small like this, if you put 3 or 4 of these into a pita, you get some cucumber, you get your tzatziki sauce, some fresh tomato. They're going to be very nice. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to plate up my second batch, and then we're going to get them in the oven in just a few minutes. All right, now that we've got our falafels all dished out and ready to go here, the recipe I made ended up making right about 60 falafels of this size. But of course, you know, as your disher is going to be a different size, or if you do this by teaspoons or tablespoons, you know, you can make them larger or smaller. So I've got our oven at 400 degrees. It's just a regular conventional oven. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in. Got one in there. Had a couple little extra ones here. We'll just put this one in here. Make sure not to burn ourselves. 10 minutes on the first side. And then we're going to flip them over and give them about another 10 to 12 minutes just to make sure that they get nice and brown. And then we're going to take them off, let them cool before we eat them. So we'll check those in 10 minutes. All right, now that our falafels have had their first 10 minutes, it's time to pull them out, flip them over. And what I think you're going to see here is that they've started to plump just a little bit, not a lot, but just a little bit. That's from the baking powder in the mix there. So I'm going to go ahead and grab both trays of this at once. And I'm going to flip these over. You don't want them to get too much color because, again, we are going to get some more time in the oven here. So I'm going to be pretty gentle with these because they're still pretty soft. Just flip them over. Because we did make them a little bit on the petite side. It does make it a little bit more troublesome to get them flipped over here, but that's all right. It's worth the effort. Anything like this is worth the effort because Greek food is really pretty easy. But this is something really, really healthy. It's got a lot of flavor, and wish you folks could actually smell them here because they actually smell very, very, very nice, even with the first 10 minutes here. And you know, I did kind of mash up a couple here, but that's all right. They're going to taste just fine, and those can be the chef's samples. We're going to go ahead and get these back in the oven. And I'm actually going to flip the top band and the bottom band just to make sure, because you know everyone's oven's just a little bit different. that they do cook evenly. And I'm gonna check these at 10 minutes again, but it may take just a couple minutes longer just to finish those off. All right, so we've got, I've already pulled out the first pan of falafels and got them started here, so I'm gonna grab the second pan here. These took about 13-14 minutes on the second side. They're nice and crispy. You wanna check them because to know that when they're done, you don't want them doughy in the center. You actually want them to have a nice crunch to them when you bite into them. So these are looking really good now. One thing, having been to Greece, you'll see sometimes that the falafels will be much greener than this. It really comes down to a preference on how much parsley you want to put in them. With ours, we had about 3 tablespoons of parsley, fresh parsley, in the 2 batches. So you can certainly vary that up or down depending on your taste. These just give a nice little background note. Go ahead and get these plated up. And we will be good to have our nice little sandwich here. Now, one thing that we went with here tonight is that we have what are called gorditas instead of pitas. But certainly, you know, pita would be your traditional flatbread of choice here. Gorditas are a little bit thicker. They have a little more moisture, a little bit more fat to them. My family prefers these, so what we got here is we can put 2 or 3 falafels onto our gordita. We've got our tzatziki we also made earlier 2 ways. We've got our tzatziki with mint, and we have our tzatziki with dill. And just as a nice little accompaniment here, we also have some fresh diced tomato. So I think we're set and we're gonna dig in here. Hope you enjoyed the recipes. Hope you enjoyed your time with us. Yamas, enjoy.